They say the most powerful magic isn't found in a dusty tome or a hidden cave. It's found in the corners of our daily lives, the way we set our intentions and build a life that feels as sacred as it does successful. Welcome to the Coven's Corner. We're here to bring you grounded, accessible magic every witchy Wednesday, and there's a seat at our table for you. So grab a cup of tea, and let's look at the world a little differently. Our circle is open. Let's begin. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Coven's Corner. Our circle is open, and we are so incredibly grateful to have you sitting here with us at our altar today. Welcome back to the space, everyone. I'm Kacey.
And I'm Dawn. It's so wonderful to be back at the table with all of you. All right, Kacey, let's start the fire with our weekly vibe check. What's on your mind and on your altar this week?
Well, on my mind this week is the concept of absolute autonomy between managing the high-volume chaos of campus deadlines and navigating the beautiful nonstop reality of parenting. My daily life is deeply intertwined with other people's needs. So when I sit down at my altar at night, I find myself craving total silence. Right now on my altar is very minimalistic, just a single black candle, a piece of smoky quartz, a notebook, and no rigid rules, no expectations, just pure solitary space where I answer only to myself. What about you, Dawn?
That's nice. And I love smoky quartz. I have so many of them. My vibe this week is actually the exact opposite. On my mind has been the deep craving for community. In career services, I deal with people transitioning and searching for where they belong all day long. This week, I've been feeling how heavy it is to carry a practice entirely on your own. On my altar, I actually have a small ring of tea light candles, all feeding into a central piece of amethyst. It looks nice, and hopefully it's functional too. So it represents the power of a shared circle. It made me realize how much we fluctuate between needing isolation and then needing people too.
It is such a beautiful paradox, and it is the exact friction that inspired today's episode. We call our show the Coven's Corner, but the reality of modern witchcraft is that many of us spend a lot of time walking this path completely alone. Today we are unpacking the solitary practitioner versus coven work, exploring the absolute freedom of practicing on your own terms versus the magic and support of finding a community that fits your vibe.
Right. This is going to be a juicy, honest conversation. Let's dive right into the beauty of the lone wolf path, the solitary witch.
Okay, so let's start by honoring the absolute superpower of being a solitary practitioner. There is a profound freedom in realizing that you are the high priestess of your own living room. You don't need anyone else's permission, validation, or consensus to create magic.
Absolutely. When you practice alone, your craft is 100% tailor-made for your life. If you want to perform a ritual in your pajamas at midnight because that's when your kids go to bed and they're finally asleep, you can. If you want to completely skip a tradition or a holiday because your corporate job just left you too exhausted, there's no coven leader who's going to call you out on the carpet for that, for missing the meeting. You answer entirely to your own inner compass.
Yes, it eliminates the spiritual performance. In a world where we are constantly performing for bosses, for students, and society, the solitary altar is the one place where you can be entirely unpolished. You can build your own healing modalities, experiment with your own elemental frameworks, and change your mind whenever you want. You are completely sovereign.
But it does come with a catch, right? When you're a solitary witch, you're also your own project manager. There's no one holding you accountable, no one to bounce ideas off of, and no one to pull you out of a spiritual rut when you feel disconnected.
Very
and
true.
You also have to be very disciplined to practice solitary. If your goal is to actually practice, you have to make sure that you're doing what you need to do, and not saying there aren't sometimes you just want to sit with your feet up and read a book or write a spell. That's perfectly fine too. But there are trade-offs.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and the spiritual dry spells are so real when you're alone too. When that magic feels stagnant, you can't rely on a group's energy to lift you up. You have to dig deep and find the spark within yourself. It requires a lot of self-discipline to keep walking this path solo.
Very,
and
very true.
For those of us who have done it, we know, there's some times where you just can't motivate yourself to even light a candle.
Right.
But it's finding that balance, and being a solitary does give you a lot of freedom, but there's something also to be said for a community too.
Right. Sometimes you just need somebody to kick you in the butt.
Yeah, exactly.
Excuse me. There are many times that full moon's coming in 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And then the night of the full moon, I'm like, I just don't feel like doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if I had somebody else saying, all right, let's do something together, I would have more motivation to actually do something.
Yeah,
so
definitely. The Coven mentality definitely holds you accountable.
Yeah.
So
sure does. All right. Point number
Second
2.
segment. So let's pivot to the opposite side of the coin now. Coven work and shared circles. So what happens when we actually choose to weave our energy with others?
Right. And when you find a true aligned spiritual community, the energetic output multiplies exponentially. It's the difference between a solar acoustic guitar and a full symphony.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In a healthy coven or healthy circle, everyone brings a strength to the table. One person might be incredibly good with herbalism, another has mastered the tarot, and someone who is holding down the grounding earth energy. You get to learn, you get to expand, and be held by a more collective consciousness.
Yes, absolutely. There is something deeply healing about, being witnessed in your magic too. For so many of us who have to hide our practice or tone it down in our professional day jobs, stepping into a room of like-minded practitioners where you can speak freely is a massive sigh of relief. It breaks that isolation of the modern world.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So it really does, but we have to be real about the logistics here. A coven is still a group of humans, and whenever there are humans, you have the whole group dynamic thing, ego, scheduling conflicts, and we've run into that a lot with the scheduling conflicts, and politics. But again, when you have a group of humans, there are compromises that have to be made. When you're solitary, the only compromise you have to make is with yourself, and the only one you have to answer to for that is yourself. Yeah.
Oh, don't get me started on group politics. If you think managing an academic community is tough, try getting 5 independent witches to agree on a ritual time and who's bringing what element to the altar.
Yes.
It takes real emotional maturity and compromise. You give up a piece of your total flexibility in exchange for the power of the collective.
Right.
And one of the things, I do run group rituals for the major holidays. And I will say that it's not your traditional coven experience. It's more of like a community share, where people can come and go as they please. If people want to come for a particular holiday, they're welcome to. They're not required to come to every holiday. So I think for me, I have found that balance with that, like, balancing my own solitary practice with being able to celebrate with a group of like-minded individuals on like the high holidays.
And that's the community factor that I like. I mean, I have definitely been interested in a coven where it's a set group of people and you all work together with your energies match. But the scheduling conflicts, the who's doing what, it can get kind of droll after a while. Yeah. But in the community setting like you're talking about, you might meet different people every ritual, every circle, and you're continually learning. And there have been instances in a setting like that where somebody's energy just doesn't meld well with yours. But that's okay because you're not meeting with them every single holiday. Exactly. They're not in your coven, but they're in your community.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that brings us straight into our hot take this week.
Yeah.
So let's put it right out there on the kitchen table. Can you actually achieve high-level spiritual evolution if you never step outside of your solitary bubble? Or does real spiritual growth require the friction of community to mirror our flaws and make us grow?
Yeah, that's a spicy one, all right. There's a school of thought that says if you only practice alone, you risk creating a spiritual echo chamber where you're never challenged, you're never uncomfortable, and you just validate your own biases. They argue that community forces you to develop compassion, patience, boundaries, but honestly, I don't know, that's a little gatekeepy for me.
Yeah, I guess. And, I am glad you said that. From my perspective, walking the solitary path with absolute integrity takes an incredible amount of shadow work. You don't necessarily need a physical group of people to create spiritual friction. Life itself, our jobs, our families, our daily struggles provide plenty of friction.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we should do an episode or a couple on shadow work itself.
Yes.
I think that would be beneficial too.
Good idea.
Yeah. So standing firmly in your power as a solitary witch while navigating a chaotic, non-witchy world is an evolutionary masterclass in itself. And sometimes just being a solitary witch in your own home, depending on your living situation and who you're living with, can be challenging sometimes as well.
Mm-hmm.
So life itself can influence you one way or another, and you have to remain true to yourself when you are practicing solitary. So community is a great resource, but it's not a prerequisite to being a powerful, deeply aligned practitioner. You are a whole witch all by yourself. And you and I have discussed this before. My hesitancy to form a coven or to join a community is I don't know who these energies are. I don't know these people. And I've been very standoffish with it for that reason. But I do find that it gets lonely being a solitary witch. It really does. And I think you need that communication with other like-minded people. You don't have to be best friends with them, but you can learn something from somebody whose energy doesn't just mesh with yours at all. So there are great opportunities out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe it's not about necessarily doing one or the other, but just making the decision to make your own community. And really, make your own schedule. So, doing solitary work for things that are deeply personal to you, but for high holidays or, full moon rituals or things like that, finding that like-minded community to actually celebrate with.
And it's actually more fun that way.
Yeah.
Because, somebody will bring Oreos or cookies or something. And apple juice, and but I do enjoy the energy of a community celebration. But you're right, there are certain things that are very private to you that you don't want to work with somebody else's energy. You want to work with your own. Yeah. And I think it makes sense to find that balance.
Yeah, 100%. And I've done a lot of Coven research just with like the classes that I've taught and things like that. And the hierarchy is one thing that that I don't necessarily vibe with. For me, magic should be shared by all. It shouldn't be gatekept. It shouldn't be held back from people who really want to learn.
Right.
And yes, there is a method to learning a practice. You have to learn the foundations before you it's like building a house. You have to set the foundation before you can put up the walls, before you can put down the floors and all the things. So there are steps that you take, but gatekeeping knowledge for the sake of gatekeeping knowledge is just not.
It's selfish.
It is.
I think it is.
It's selfish, and it creates a dynamic that I think is counterintuitive to how magic is supposed to flow.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that.
So, I mean, if there could be a coven that acted outside of that traditional mentality, I think that I would probably be more inclined to look into.
Right. But then, would it still be a coven?
I mean, it depends on your definition of
Right,
coven.
right.
So, I mean, you could say a coven is just a group of people who want to practice together. Some people have a more like traditional, strict
Right.
way of defining a coven, but I guess it's really up to the interpretation of the witch.
True, very true. And I would be more likely to create or join something like that if there was no, like, it shouldn't, in my opinion, it shouldn't be one person deciding what's going on every time.
Right.
Okay, so this time is yours. Next time is yours. Let's see what you can bring into it. I think that would be so beneficial to everybody. Everybody feels like an equal. And again, it's all about learning and sharing, and you'd be able to better learn and open yourself to new things if you're exposed to a bunch of different
Right.
practices and rituals. So I would like that.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, so if you're listening to this and you're torn between the freedom of a solitary witch and the longing for community, let's talk about how to build that hybrid practice that gives you the best of both worlds and helps you find that balance.
I think this is the sweet spot for the modern witch. You can maintain a fiercely protected solitary core, your daily coffee rituals, your personal journaling, your private altar, while still dipping your toes into community spaces when your battery allows it.
Absolutely. So community doesn't have to mean a lifelong, strict, traditional coven contract like we were just talking about. It can look like you're attending an open public ritual for solstices, joining a local book club, even finding a digital coven right here through podcasts or social media communications. So what are your thoughts on that?
So I think the modern practitioner is definitely much more digital than we have experienced in our practices. I think that the energy is different. I know there are some witches who firmly believe that digital magic is not magic. I don't know if I agree with that. I think that it's a different kind of magic because it's all energy. Where a digital community meets is just a different method to how to practice, and sharing that collective space even through a screen or through digital means, I think still has merit.
Yeah, and I can't really say one way or another because I've never experienced it, but I think the things that you can get from it, the learning and being able to express yourself, would be the same whether it's in person or digital. I just worry that there's a piece missing when it's on the screen and not in person. But again, I've never done it, so I can't say that for sure.
Yeah, I think there is a difference to the energy, not being in the same physical space as other people. You're not feeling that energy, physically in your space. But I definitely think there is something to be said for a different way to look at modern practice.
Right. And we've been together times and had really good energy. But the best time, do you know what I'm going to say? Was when we went to see Stevie Nicks. And the energy that was created, and oh my gosh, it was absolutely amazing. So I wonder if that's missing in the whole digital world. And again, my hesitancy to do any group work because I don't know the energy that somebody's bringing into it is wide open when you're talking about a digital coven. So it depends on what works for you. That's what it boils down to.
100%. Yep. So it could simply look like just having one trusted person too. You don't need 13 people.
Oh, the
sometimes
13.
The traditional 13.
Right.
You sometimes just having that one work bestie or a podcast co-host who gets your spiritual language is enough to anchor that shared energy. It's about quality over quantity. You control the dial on how much energy you share and how much you keep for yourself.
Yep. And I always do it myself. I know you do it. If we're doing any group work, protect yourself before you even enter that circle. Do your self-protection, just because you don't know. But have fun, because they are fun.
Yes, 100%. And it's also just a matter of giving yourself the space to experience something different, and giving yourself the space to experience something new and something that's outside of your comfort zone. I think we don't grow when we sit in our comfort zone all the time. I think we grow when we are challenged and when we are facing any sort of adversity and any sort of discomfort. When you sit in the discomfort, that is where the most growth happens. So I just recommend doing something outside of your comfort zone, whether that's, going to a local, a local community ritual, or, checking out a digital coven or a digital, magic space. Just put yourself out there and let yourself grow. Yeah. And I represent that fully, because I was very Capricorny. This is what needs to be done when, this is how it needs to be done, etc. And you were actually the one that kind of opened me up to the community, because initially I was like, I'm not going. I'm not interested. Thanks anyway. It's great. I have a great time. And then when I went a few times, I really enjoyed the experience. It was nice. So thank you. You're welcome.
And we need to do it again.
Of course. And you met some great people that we're still friends with, so it's a matter of just putting yourself out there, and you never know. You never know what the experience is going to be like. It might be, something that you're like, I tried it once, it's not for me. Or it could be something that you're like, this is exactly what I was looking for, and, it's something that you want to do on a more regular basis. So
I think we should do that. I really think we should.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Hi.
All right.
Okay, so it is all about finding the rhythm that feeds your soul. We want to hear where you stand on that spectrum. So, which brings us to our Consulting the Coven prompt for next week.
Yes, so we want to take the pulse of our listeners. Do you consider yourself a strictly solitary practitioner, a coven member, or are you floating beautifully in that hybrid space between? What is the biggest joy or challenge of your current path? Email us your stories at covenscornerpodcast@gmail.com.
So, I do want you guys to know, when you email us, we do read your emails very, very much, and we appreciate the feedback from you. And again, if there's something in particular you'd like us to discuss, just send us an email and let us know, and we'd be happy to consider it. All right, so before we close our circle and turn down the lights today, let's anchor this conversation with our weekly spark. Okay, everyone, take a minute to find center. Settle your weight into your seat. Roll your shoulders back and gently close your eyes. Take a deep, clearing breath all the way in and let it go. Visualize a brilliant, glowing cord of white light extending from the base of your spine, anchoring you deep into the heart of the earth. Feel your own individual sovereign power humming within your chest, a flame that belongs entirely to you, that no one can extinguish or control. Now see that flame expand, casting a warm light outward. In your mind's eye, see a vast circle of individual lights flickering all across the world. Thousands of other solitary practitioners sitting at their own altars, breathing in this same exact moment. You are completely autonomous, yet you are fundamentally connected to a global tapestry of magic. You are never truly isolated, and you are always completely whole. Take one more deep, empowering breath, feeling both your independence and your connection. And when you are ready, gently open your eyes.
Welcome back to the center, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing your sacred energy with us today. Honor your sovereign path, seek your people when you need them, and trust your inner voice above all else. Don't forget to follow our weekly updates on Instagram and TikTok at Coven's Corner Podcast. We'll see you next Witchy Wednesday.
Stay magical, everyone.
Be well, everyone. Thank you. As we close the circle for today, remember that the magic doesn't end with this episode. Keep looking for the magic in the mundane. If you enjoyed today's conversation, we'd love for you to connect with our Coven. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Coven's Corner Podcast and at www.thecovenscorner.com. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a Witchy Wednesday. We'll see you next time.